Welcome back to 8 Cubes, the show where two nerds in glasses talk about the 8 most important topics in Marvel Snap. I'm KMBest, he's Lambie Series. We are going to start off today with Thanos Fractured Frontier, who I am trying to do from memory here. Lambie, I think, has it pulled up. He'll correct me if he needs to. Thanos Fractured Frontier, 5/8. Game start, your load a round, an infinity round. Your cards have quick draw. Thanos loads again. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And also on review, fire all loaded shots.
Correct. So basically, whenever you start with 1 in the chamber, there are 6 total. Whenever you play the card you drew for that turn, he loads another one. And you can load up to 6 infinity shots, at which point, when you play Thanos, he will fire all of them, or however many you have loaded up until this point. The shots are... I don't think I'm going to get their names right, but hopefully I'll get all their effects. There is a shot that destroys your opponent's weakest card at the location.
So the soul shot, yes.
There's a shot that makes a copy of your cheapest card at the location.
Reality shot.
There's a shot that gives Thanos +3 power, and that one's power shot, and I know that.
Obviously.
There's a shot that gives Thanos +1 immovable, and that one's space shot.
Yeah.
There's a shot that draws a card, which is mind, and a shot that discounts your hand by 1, which is time.
The most important one. But
you think that's the most important one? Okay, yeah, let's just go. Which one? Which one do you think is the coolest one? What are we building around here? Let's go.
Okay, so I guess maybe it might be the second most important one. But like, okay, so I think the second most important one is either the time shot or the soul shot, right? Like playing a 5/8 and then just blowing up a guy on your opponent's side is insane. Like that's already above rate for stats per se. But of course, time shot, right? Like, Time Stone of the past. Like, you guys remember Time Stone, right? Like, just like skips the curve. It's basically Ramp Thanos of the past, right? This one, if you play like Thanos on turn 5, your turn 6 just gets exponentially insane, right? Like, obviously, you want to fire off all the shots where possible. But the funny thing about this is that the quick draw mechanic is like, it's a bit weird and cool at the same time because, like, firstly, it's like law accurate, like Cowboys, Wild West, whatever, firing shots, whatever. But like, you have to kind of play every card you draw to make this like max potential, And the thing about that is that you don't always get to play every card that you draw unless you kind of build around it. So that's how I was talking to KM a bit before we started this, which is like this card. Like I was like, KM, I think we have to build around this card, and you were like, I think you kind of like only can play this if you build around it, right? So. Then the question next, which you guys know is coming, is what is the build around? What is the deck, right? I mean, we had a whole era of Thanos where we built around the 6 stones. Now we got to build around the bullets. Like, what's the build around for these shots?
I think that I actually want to rewind to like what the important shots are, because I think it's really interesting because I identified a couple of them, right? The important shots for me are the shots that allow you to do something meaningful on the board. Because I think that what I want to do with this card is clone one of my things, blow up one of my opponent's things, and then move him out of that location if I want to, right? I want him to come down, win the hell out of that lane, and then go somewhere else. Those are the ones that I want him to be doing things with. Those are the hits that I want out of this, right? And that's a cool, fine, reasonable thing to have. I've got no problems with a card that is that strong and does that. Here's the thing. I don't know what I want to be doing with that discount. I get that discount's good in the abstract, but the cards I want to play in a Sarah deck are not the cards I can play in a deck where I have to play the card I drew every turn. I don't have the ability to do that, right? I have to play a card I drew every turn, which means I can't be a Juggernaut gamer. I can't be a Shadow King gamer. The cards I want that discount on are these tech cards that are massively interactive. I don't think I can build a Thanos deck that makes sense that lets me do that, which makes me even more confident that, like, the thing I actually want from this card is vision that does some other stuff. That's what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for a big vision that killed a guy when he came down. That's what I'm trying to make this guy be.
Yeah, so I'm gonna like agree and disagree a little bit here, right? Because so this card is like one of the most interesting things that they've printed in a really, really long time. This card, one thing I agree with you is that I don't think you should play this deck as like a tech deck or tech card, right? Because this card, when it comes down, you want it to solve all the problems, really. Like, you want it to blow up a guy, you want it to be movable, you want it to like duplicate a thing. And obviously, the thing about the time shot in particular is that, like, if you're playing like a stats dump deck, right, instead of like a tech deck, you don't really care what you're discounting, right? Like, if you play on turn 5, on turn 6, your whole hand is cheaper. You just dump. You just play a bunch of stats, right? So I think one thing I agree on is that this shouldn't be like a tech deck of sorts, but like this should be like a stat dump deck. So maybe play lots of cheap, like low costed, high power guys. Like, we have a few of those 2-cost guys that are really big, and then go from there, right? Because you can play those from your hand. If they come late, they get discounted a bit later. You just dump it all on the final turn, like Sarah style. So I guess this card itself will solve a lot of the problems, right? Because when it lands on the board, it blows up a guy, you duplicate a guy, and then it's movable as well. So you kind of have like a bit of control of your points and board state. And then on the final turn, you just dump all your stats because of the time shot. So I think that's really, really doable. But at the end of the day, like, what is the deck, right? Maybe it's just like a bunch of cheap, low-cost guys, and then you slam a Thanos on 5, and then you dump stuff again on 6, and that should be enough, maybe.
Next up, Jane Foster, Fractured Frontier on the Super Premium Season Pass. I'll be honest. I recorded a podcast with Butt within the last 12 hours, the KMB cast. And on that podcast, I said something along the lines of like, I came prepared to say that they were actual demons for putting a card that is just like a 3/8 to a 3/12 and just being like, that's the Super Premium Pass card. The downside is it's a 3/8. What's up? And then like putting that on the Super Premium Pass. But pointed out a couple of really reasonable things to me that I'm going to steal and utilize for my own purposes here. And they are this. Jane Foster, first of all, her actual ability, 3/4, Judge the Worthy, which is basically if they're on your opponent's side of the board, they get -1. If they're on your side of the board, they get +1. Quick draw, do it again, up to 4 targets each time. That reads to me like, okay, 3/8 downside, 3/12 upside, but there are a couple things in the way here. The first is you don't have consistent knowledge of what the output is going to be.
Exactly.
If it was targeting all afflicts, like if it was targeting your opponent's first and then yours, you'd be like, oh, I play this with High Evo, Abomination, or Ajax, or Scorpion. If it was targeting all of your stuff first and then your opponent's, you'd be like, oh, I play this with Venus and things that want me to buff stuff, right? I play this in my Marvel Boy deck. But it's not. It's targeting fully randomly those 4 things, which means that it doesn't necessarily have a good synergy home. And the reason this matters is because cards that have good stats that don't have good synergy homes, right now, those cards all go in Wilson Fisk decks. And this card is not a good card with Wilson Fisk. It's not a bad card with Wilson Fisk, but Wilson Fisk would rather have you play Kraglin so you can make sure you can play your Wilson Fisk. That's what it wants you to do. And so it's really interesting that this card just like has insane numbers on it. But because it doesn't have enough dialed in synergy, not just with the things that it does, afflict and buff, but with just being a good stats rate monster, it might not end up being as ridiculous as I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this card, like you said, right? It's too random. It's not exactly a 3/12. Even if you do the quick draw, it's not really a quick 3/12, right? It's just completely random, and it's very difficult to fit into decks reliably. Like, I mean, at a first glance, I was like, okay, that's a lot of stats. But then the more you look at it, the more you realize that, like, where am I gonna play this card? Like where's the home?
Yep. Like, I want to put it in my Supergiant deck. I feel like I care about that. But I also feel like if I'm playing a Supergiant deck, I'm playing Wilson Fisk on 3. And so, like, what's the upside versus downside ratio on this, right? Like, am I playing this over a Wilson Fisk? And then maybe giving up on my ability to play the Wilson Fisk? Because then my turn 4 is a Supergiant? Like, I think this card is phenomenally strong. It is remarkably homeless for a card as strong as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say about the quick draw mechanic, but I guess we can talk about that later as well. But I think the short spoiler to me for what we're going to talk about later is that, like, the thing about the quick draw mechanic is it kind of makes you be forced to play in a certain way, because like they are so much better when played on the draw. But what if there's an actual like theoretical better play than playing the quick draw guy? Then the quick draw guy becomes way worse on the following turn, So that's something we'll talk about a bit later.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing that really stacks up when you compare what you're actually doing with these cards. It's something I think about a lot with Thanos, think about a lot with Jane. Luckily, I don't think I think about it a lot with the next card, Psylocke, Fractured Frontier.
Yep.
who is a 3/4 with an ability that makes all the cards that cost 5 or more in your hand 1 cheaper. And then if you quick draw her, she does it to your entire hand. Which
insane.
I think this card is quite good. I think this card is tailor-made for Living Tribunal type combo decks, Scorpion type combo decks, where like what you're doing is something very specific. The more specific your game plan is and the more it revolves around a 6-drop, the more you kind of have to ramp in order to make that card work. This is a card that to me is like, this could be as good as Luna Snow in those decks. And Luna Snow is like the best card those decks have. Luna Snow is an unbelievably powerful card. This is a card that I think could be just as good. The fact that those decks can't run multiple Luna Snows is actually bad for them. The fact that these decks can, like, basically, if you're a Magic deck, you really don't want to have to be a Magic deck a lot of the time. And a card like this can put a lot of decks that are currently Magic decks for necessity reasons into a much more reasonable position. You hit a Zombie Galacti with this, right? Like, you can do things. And, like, it's not perfect. It's not amazing. It's not probably as good as Luna Snow, but this is definitely a card that's just, like, I think going to be around in a bunch of bad decks and then also, like, 2 good combo decks.
Yeah. This card, can you just imagine, like, if this card was ever meta, the difference between the people winning with this deck and not winning with this deck is mandatorily drawing this on turn 3. If you do you realize the problem with the quick draw mechanic is also that if you draw the thing too early before it's time to play the card, like can you imagine getting this in your hand on turn 1 or 2 and you're just like, I'm screwed?
Well,
man.
that's sort of what I mean, right? You're not like, this is the one that's interesting to me, because when you build a deck with this card, you're building it around the non-quick draw.
Yeah, of course, the 5s,
yes.
5s.
Whereas, like, I'm not sure how true that is in the other cases, but, like, you're building it around the 5s and 6s, right? That's the deck this goes in.
This one in particular can be drawn early. You don't really care, because if you're playing this on 3, it doesn't matter whether you drew it on turn 1 or 2, you're going to play a 5 on 4, right? And then from there, and then that's like reverse ramp, and I think that could be a thing by itself.
Yeah, like, I think this card is just good. Like, when I look at this card, you know, I do a video every, like, the day the season drops on, like, rating every cards, and this is probably spoilers for that video, but when I look at this card, I'm just like, that's a bang-on 4. That's a 4 out of 5. Like, that's just what that card is. The definition of it. Sure. Like, archetype all-star with potential to take its archetypes over the top. Really just a great card that just looks very solid. That, like, yes, the floor on it, there is a floor, because, like, I think people are going to play this in a ton of bad decks, and it's going to be doing, like, jank glue type stuff. But I do think that this is a floor raiser for a lot of those bad decks. The card I want to draw the analogy to, weirdly, is Venus. Like, when Venus came out and it was just, like, mono bad decks, everyone's playing a bad Venus deck. 100% of Venus decks are just, like, tier 2-ish mid crap, but that's way higher than they were. This card sort of feels like that to me, where it's like, Tribunal sucks, Scorpion Brand New Day is mid, I get that. This is a card that raises their floor. It just is. And part of the reason those cards or those decks aren't particularly good is because they have such a low floor. And so a card that addresses that meaningfully is really helpful to me. Speaking of big, dumb, underrated, 6 drops, Sinister Six has done some things in this metagame. I think you could reasonably argue that, like, it is probably correct to run Sinister Six in at least Thanos and maybe Bounce. Very plausibly correct at the very least. And that's probably more than I expected. Like, I didn't expect Sinister Six to be remotely playable, because I was thinking about how do you build around Sinister Six, and that was the wrong way to be thinking about it. Apparently, the way to build around Sinister Six is, like, don't worry about it. Just put it in a deck that's going to use it as 12 free power. And that is, you know, I mean, I get, that's the KMBest attitude, right? Just don't build around this. What are you, stupid? Just get it for free, right? Like, that's a very real thing to do, and that is seemingly what Sinister Six is doing in the current context. Do you think there's any lessons to be learned here? Because, like, my thing was, I can see that 12 free power is good, but I find it difficult to figure out how to actually make it free. Thanos and Bounce do a really good job of actually making it pretty free. Like, it's pretty close to free to include in those decks. And I think that that's, like, my big lesson from Sinister Six is, like, keep in mind that, like, edge cases really exist for stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of got it really wrong last week, right? When we talked about it, like both of us were like trying to find a way to build
Couldn't figure
around
it
this
out.
card. Turns out 12 power is 12 power, So I think I'm very sure this was not the intended usage of the card. Like when it was printed, it was not meant to be like this.
Yeah.
But in a weird and ironic way, at least it's playable. Not for its intended purpose per se, but like it's playable.
Yeah, the more I try to build around Sinister Six, the less happy I am with every deck I make. But the more I just put him in some deck running 5/1-drops, the more I'm just like, yeah, this is fine. Yeah, sure. So let's talk a bit about the quick draw mechanic. This is the mechanic where the card you draw this turn is the one that has the quick draw ability. They did put some stuff in there, according to the tooltip on the data mines, that like cards drawn after cards reveal. So like Thanos stone cards will count as quick draw on the next turn, which is really good for them. Like really, really good. But like Crystal and I think Adam Warlock, similar timing where it's like if the card is drawn after cards are revealed, it will count for the next turn because they don't want you to feel too stupid for drawing cards. I think it's nice that that's in there, but I do think that's a pretty significant boost to the mechanic. And I think that that's, a very real thing that honestly does make some sense. But on the whole, what do you think about a mechanic like this? Didn't Hearthstone have almost this same mechanic? How did it get received? Are there any lessons that we can take from that?
Yeah, I can't. It's been a while for me since my Hearthstone days, but they did have a card or like an effect. I forgot what it was called. It was like if it was like on the far right of your hand or something like that. It doubles.
Yeah.
Like there's an additional copy. I think it's called Echo or something like that. Like you have an additional copy if it was like on the far right or far left of your hand or something like that. Yeah. So basically, it's similar to this one, right? Whereby the turn you draw it, like the bonus or the power of the card is like exponentially increased, and then if you don't play it on the turn you draw it, it's like it's still okay, but it's like way worse for some of the cards, right? So I think I'm very curious. I like the mechanic for what it's worth. I think it's a. I didn't think that they would introduce something like this, like in Marvel Snap. I think it's really cool. It's pretty cool, but and I also think that like it really depends how they balance this in the future, right? Like, is it supposed to be the disparity between the normal effect and the quick draw effect? Is it supposed to be huge, or is it supposed to be like not so huge, right? Like, I'm very curious to like see like which is the direction they take, because currently what I'm seeing, like at least for Psylocke's like if you build around her, you don't really care about the quick draw for the most part, right?
Yeah, like they're
And
playing with it, right? Like,
yeah,
have you seen Red Hulk yet? I don't know how far ahead you
yeah,
look.
I've seen it.
Yeah, like Red Hulk, they're definitely playing with it because like Psylocke and Jane are both, here is an effect. If you quick draw, here's a better version of that effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Red Hulk is like, here is an effect that is bad, but if you quick draw me, it flips to being good. And like that's
so the thing,
very different.
Yeah, but if you look at Red Hulk, right? Like if you look at the stat line, I mean not really spoiler, but like if you look at the stat line of Red Hulk, it's incentivizing you to like do the quick draw for sure. If not, you're never playing the card, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's very interesting that like I think maybe this is the direction that I like personally, whereby you don't play these cards without the quick draw. They gotta design it so that like if you play them without the quick draw, they're like just like not good. But if you play them with the quick draw, they're like insane. Like I think there
You
has
like
to be
that?
some downside, right? Like the thing about Psylocke is like there's so little downside to her.
I wanted to talk a little bit about fives because 5-drops are a very weird situation in Marvel Snap. I think it's been years that I've been saying all 5-drops are either Legion or Devil Dinosaur. And someone in my Discord made a meme about it, and I posted it, and I got some pushback that was like, actually, there's a separate class of 5-drops that is like Sarah, right? Like where it's like Sarah or MODOK or whatever, where it's not exactly Legion, but the 5-drop, or like Star-Lord, where like the 5-drop is the setup thing for your whole deck. Fallen One, Sarah, MODOK, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I buy that. There's also the other piece of pushback I got was there's also a separate class of 5-drop, which is Spider Sense, where that class is total dog shit. And that I got that pushback as well. But largely what I wanted to bring up is I worry that maybe I've been too specific with my critiques of 5s, right? Because like, isn't that just most cards in Marvel Snap? It's either a small guy with a big effect or a big guy with a small effect, right? Like, isn't that just like kind of how, by the nature of Marvel Snap, you're just gonna have cards that are doing things in fairly linear roles because of what the game is. There's really only a cost and a power on every card. There's not like power toughness. There's no like ability to differentiate two cards that cost 2 and have 2 power from each other. Where like in Magic, one of them could be a 2/1, one of them could be a 2/4. They'd be vastly different cards. And I think that is notable in Marvel Snap design. But I think what specifically gets me about 5s is that they don't print 5, 10, and aboves. They just don't do it.
Yeah, that's true.
And Thanos is the first 5 they've made that's like, what if we printed a card that actually looked at our vanilla curve, right? Remember, the vanilla 5 is Abomination. What if we printed a card that was like Abomination stats with a good effect? Like, they just don't do it. Everything with a good effect is weaker than Abomination. And so they were like, finally, they printed a card that was Abomination stats and something actually good. Not like Arrow or Vision, where it's like, this is fine. Something that is actually a good effect in the game Marvel Snap that is like, not just okay, but good. Great, even. And yeah, I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the latest Thanos is actually, it's one of the few you can build around this card 5 drops, right? Like a lot of the other 5 drops. Okay, so it's not exactly wrong to say that like you can classify 5 drops as like the setup piece for the end game. Because if you look at a lot of the 5 drops, they are actually the setup piece for the end game, right? Back to the arrow days, like if you arrow on curve, right, you know how it's gonna end because their location is clogged up, stuff like that. You legion on curve, you know this location is gonna be like whatever. Like a lot of the 5s are like setup pieces for the end game, which kind of makes sense also because it's like the second last.
Yeah, it's second last turn. A lot of like that.
Yeah, so they're like sort of designed to be like the setup pieces for the end game kind of thing. But whereas for something like Thanos, it's the new Thanos anyway. It's more Shao Lao-esque, that card. Like you build around it. It's like boss monster vibes, right?
Yes.
Shao Lao was clearly boss monster that ends the game. This card probably will be boss monster that ends the game as well.
But it's a boss monster that ends the game. Like, look, here's what I'm getting at. It's a boss monster that ends the game that you want to play on turn 5. Because there are 3 stones that are super terrible if you play them on 6. And it's a boss monster that ends the game in ways that are not deterministic. When you play Sarah, we all know what's going on. When you play MODOK, we all know what's going on. When you play Star-Lord, we all like it's deterministic. I am doing this. This is a step in my flowchart. When you play Thanos, the outcomes are varied. He's like one of those, but interesting.
That being said, I agree, right? Because you can move him, you blow up guys, you duplicate guys, you discount your hand. So the final turn is not like predetermined, right?
Yes.
Like it's still a bit of like guesswork and a bit of like confusion on the opponent's part as well. But so here's the thing about this Thanos, and the issue I also wanted to talk about this in the quick draw topic, but I forgot. The quick draw mechanic kind of incentivizes you to play like dumb Marvel Snap. Like I don't call it
does. No, you want a lot of replaceable guys.
No, you wanna just play whatever you draw. You get
which means because your deck needs a bunch of replaceable guys.
Yeah, but you're not like there's no outsmarting. There's no like, oh, I'm gonna do it differently because I can outplay you. No, you're gonna do the same thing everyone's doing. They're gonna play the card they just drew. Like if Marvel Snap goes completely in that direction, I'm not too sure if it's gonna be good. Maybe it's simplified. Okay, simplification might not be a bad thing, but like if your deck is incentivizing you to play off the top of whatever you draw, if not the upside is gonna be like reduced by a lot, then like isn't that gonna be a problem?
I think they're gonna skate on it. That's my honest answer. Like people are talking about putting this Thanos card in Batroc, and it's like if it's making it into Batroc decks, they gotta nerf the card because Batroc is the most sequencing heavy mid-range deck of all time.
Curve deck, right? Like you just play cards on curve without like there's no doubt
like but like that's the thing.
There's less downside to be playing your tools in different order because you know that as long as you play the tools, the Thanos will win the game.
But there's a huge like the thing of like that's what I'm saying though, right? Like what is it like? Which stone to you? Let's say I drew Sam Wilson in my opening hand. I'm playing the Batroc deck. Yep. There is no stone that is more valuable to me than playing Sam Wilson on 2. Doesn't exist. I'm gonna play the Sam Wilson on 2. I'm not gonna play the top deck card. There is also probably no stone that is more valuable to me than playing Kraven on 3. After I've done that, I'm going to play the Kraven on 3. I'm not going to play the top deck card. So if this card is making it into Batroc, which is like a deck that has like, there are exceedingly specific things you want to do. You want to play Batroc, you want to play Sam Wilson, you want to play Craven, and then you want to play, you know, a stats guy and a Miles Morales. You want to be doing like things like that. And then the final turns of the game, you want to be playing Juggernaut, you want to be playing Cosmo. These are cards that are terrible at a top deck and be forced to play early. You don't want to do that crap. You want to play Hellion on 5? Only going to be able to do that if you play it on 5. You probably have to cut the guy for Thanos, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, if this card is making it into Batroc decks, they're going to have to nerf it. Because Batroc is super specific in terms of this stuff. If it's making it into Batroc decks, the card is 2 to 3 points of power too strong. Just straight up. That's just how it's going to be.
So basically what you're saying that is that if it can make it into the most like premium mid-range deck ever as like an end game piece, it's a problem. And I kind of do agree with that. Yeah,
like I that's sort of where my bar is. Like if this card is going into Batroc decks and making them better. And I think, to be clear, a lot of people are going to put it into Batroc decks on day one and be like, look at my win rate. And it's like, yeah, okay, you're playing a Batroc deck. Like, relax. Like, yes, I do think that's going to happen. But if it is actually better, like if after 2 weeks we can all agree it's an upgrade, that's a problem.
Yep.
When a card like Thanos comes out, I think that it can be a really good thing to do to look at decks that needed something like this, to recycle old ideas. I've received some feedback over the past, like, I guess, few years of being a Marvel Snap content creator who does like a best decks thing every week, that people sometimes will go back and be like, I'm going to go take a look at this shell again. I'm going to go revisit this shell. They'll watch a video from like 2 years ago and be like, does this have any applicability to the current meta? Are there decks here that have maybe fallen by the wayside that specifically need something? And with Thanos, I think it's really interesting because Thanos definitely wants fungibility. He wants all your cards to be about the same value, which is the opposite of what you have in Batroc, where there's 6 cards in the deck that are the points, and then the other 6 cards in the deck are just kind of there. What Thanos wants is 12 cards that are basically identical, so you don't have to feel bad about going off your game plan to play whatever card you top decked. Thanos wants fungibility. And we haven't had a lot of that in Marvel Snap recently, so I was kind of wondering if it would be useful to go back and look at decks that actually had that back in the day as a meaningful way of like helping out Thanos. That's part of what I was thinking about. The other thing I was thinking about was Super Giant Thanos. Does he load when he's face down? I don't know. Anyway, those are like the 2 thoughts that I had. I don't think it's good, but like I just wanted to say, like, we are in a very specific curve heavy version of Marvel Snap right now, and we have been for a while. It's been a specific curve version of Marvel Snap probably since Sholau, honestly, where it's like, I want to do X, Y, all this crap, and then do Sholau, right? And I think Sholau could have accommodated this card because it had such a low curve. Star-Lord definitely couldn't have. The Mother Ascani decks probably couldn't have because they were also very specific, right? We are in a world of specificity. The best deck in Marvel Snap for the last 8 months, give or take 2 of them, has been, I want to do a specific curve. Thanos doesn't want you to do that. And I think that's really interesting, and it might require revisiting some old ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's just Thanos. I think like the quick draw mechanic, right? Back to the whole quick draw thing. The quick draw mechanic in general wants you to play off the top. But if you look at it that way, you kind of have to structure and build a deck in that vein as well, where you are able to just completely play off the top, which if a deck has a specific curve, you cannot do that, right? If the deck has a very specific curve, you cannot maximize the potential of quick draw with a specific curve. You gotta have like, I think like, I don't know what's the numbers, but maybe like 3/4, for example, of your deck be playable at almost any point in time, so you can maximize the quick draw potential of the card, of something like Thanos anyway. So yeah, that's something really interesting to think about. In the past though, like what decks did, maybe Bounce. I think, okay, no, Bounce you kind of had to play.
No, I mean, like, I don't think that's far off. You want something with like a super low curve, right? Like you want...
Yeah. I mean, Bounce I guess was close because you could play your 1-drops in almost any order most of the time, as long as you bounce with Beast eventually, which is very similar to this, right? Play your cards in almost any order, as long as you draw this, it's fine.
Yeah, like, is there something there? I don't know. Like, it's definitely just like, it wants, like, I don't know, like, not the zombie shell, but like something werewolfy maybe, where like your curve is just super low and you just werewolf people. Like, and if you draw werewolf on 3, like even if you don't draw werewolf on 3, you play it out, and then like every other card in your deck costs 2 or less, and it's fine, and you just do that the rest of the game. That's sort of where my head is at, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, actually, the werewolf idea makes. I'm not saying it's the correct and only way to do it, but like
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense simply because like you have like an early game carry that's gonna be better than any stone, right? And then
Yeah.
everything else in your deck is like maybe for example what on reviews, which if you top deck them, you play them, your wolf gets a bit bigger. You don't really care what the on review does. It just makes the wolf a bit bigger, and then you play Thanos, So I guess that makes
Yep.
it an okay big draw deck.
Fungibility. That's exactly what I was talking about, right? Like, it needs to be a bunch of replaceable guys.
Yes.
Last up, I just want to give a nod to Big Scorpion. Scorpion, brand new day. I'm coping with this card this month. I promise you. And I'll tell you why. There are 3 reasons why. The first is Psylocke Fractured Frontier. I am overjoyed that I might not have to be a Magic deck. I might have to be a Magic deck, but anything that lets me get a Scorpion down on 5 means that I have to be a Magic deck less. And that's awesome. I love that so much. Get the Scorpion down on 5, Mystique Hazmat. Great. More ways to do that. Right now, Luna Snow is the best of them, and everything else is mid. This is great for me. I am a big fan of that. Next up, I do want to also shout out Jane Foster, because just a card that might afflict my opponent's stuff with some stuff. I'm very happy for that. Not exactly what I need, but when I play the Scorpion decks right now, what I feel like is I'm missing the ability to be a good mid-range deck. I'm missing 3-cost Laufeys, basically. And so I want to shout out Jane Foster as a potential 3-cost Laufey, so to speak, which is to say, obviously worse, but a similar concept. I also want to shout out Hellcow Fractured Frontier, who we have not talked about in this episode, but she is an end of turn 3/3 that afflicts everything -1 at this location. And if your cards get below 0, they die, which is great. Love that. Because we're talking about I want 3-cost Laufeys. It doesn't mean they need to be literally the ability of Laufey on a 3-cost. What it means is I need things that do afflict and are good cards at 3-cost so I can maintain my ability to blink any 3-cost into a Scorpion. That's what I need. And those cards are really interesting to me.
So essentially what KM is trying to say in this topic is he's trying to do the TFT thing whereby he wants to force this particular comp with all his might.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. He's been Lambie Series. I pointed the right direction, and he's going to take us out.
I'm going to point the right direction as well. Yes.
Dude, it
All
looks so much cooler
like,
when you
comment,
did
and
it.
subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.